Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. We've just had a ton of news related to the War Within dropped onto us, and in today's video, I'm going to be covering the hero talents for Warrior, the Colossus, which is going to be available for both arms and protection warriors. And this talent tree has a ton of tropes pulling from the Missa Pandaria era of World of Warcraft's expansions, and some abilities that are likely going to be really powerful and potent because of that. So let's get started. The first thing is going to be a new active ability called Demolish. It is a 45-second cooldown. You will unleash a series of precise and powerful attacks against your target and enemies within 8 yards of it. You can block, parry, and dodge while using this ability. So that way, as Prot, of course, you can tank monsters while doing this big flurry of attack. It sounds like a kind of like a melee Convoke the Spirits almost, although it's probably going to be even more powerful because of things later on in the talent tree. As we move down the left side, you will get a talent called Martial Expert. Your critical strike damage is increased by 10%, and the amount blocked by your critical blocks is increased by 10%. So honestly, not like super interesting here. It's just another modifier stacked on top, which again, based on the feedback that I've seen from a lot of other creators, is that it's adding another layer of these modifiers that are likely going to have to be rebalanced and readjusted in the future. And it's just really not honestly that interesting, but bigger numbers going to go up. For the next choice node, we've got One Against Many. Shockwave, Cleave, Whirlwind, and Revenge deal 5% more damage per target affected up to 5. So likely, Whirlwind may see more of a use here. Shockwave doing more damage is a bit interesting, and Cleave specifically. So in PvP, we're probably not going to take this. It's a lot of abilities that aren't really going to be super impacted, but Arterial Bleed, which is the next choice, Colossal Might increases the damage of Rend and Deep Wounds by 2% per stack, which is very similar to the Warlock tree that I just covered, which I'll have a link at the end of this if you haven't checked it out, because that talent tree is definitely setting the benchmark for what these talent trees need to be. But just 2% more damage and Deep Wounds and Rend is just going to be a nice little bit of throughput. Practiced Strikes, Mortal Strike and Shield Slam are just going to be doing 15% more increased damage. You combine all these modifiers together, and you can see already that Mortal Strike is going to get pretty nasty pretty fast. Colossal Might. Mortal Strike and Shield Slam grant a stack of Colossal Might. Colossal Might increases the damage done by Demolish by 10% and stacks up to 5 times. Demolish will consume these stacks. So this is similar to the Taste for Blood mechanic that we saw from Missa Pandaria that allowed you to unleash a massive heroic strike that just totally annihilated its target, which is where I think this offensive element is starting to come from. Tide of Battle. Colossus Might increases the damage of Overpower and Revenge. It's got this nice feed where like Overpower is going to buff your Mortal Strike based on your kit, and then Mortal Strike's going to buff up your Colossal Might, which is then going to buff up your Overpower, which overall is just going to make your damage really hefty. The next one, True Might. Mortal Strike and Shield Slam critical strikes grant an additional stack of Colossal Might. So if you're getting a ton of crits, you're going to get this stack higher, and you're going to be able to get these massive demolishes off faster. I do wonder if Demolish will work with anger management or have any sort of cooldown reduction oriented into it. It's probably going to become way too powerful if it does, but I'm curious if it does. The capstone talent is the Unstoppable Force. Colossal Might now stacks to 10 times. So it was previously could go up to 50. Now it's going to be double damage at 100%. And if you would gain a stack of Colossal Might and you are at max stacks, the cooldown of Demolish is reduced by 2 seconds. So there is some cooldown reduction oriented with this. As well, channeling Demolish, you will become grounded, so it sounds like unable to move, which will also make you immune to stuns and effects that move you. So it's like a Fist of Fury that's going to pin you on the ground, and when you are at max stacks, it is absolutely going to melt everybody in front of you. So I could see this being really visually appealing and really readable, which is, something that's really important for spells in the game. I like that it's got some Kiss Curse. Like, you get this massive stack of damage, but you're going to be stuck in place. So if enemies can escape from you, you've got to plan around that. That could potentially make talents like the, it's not called the Spear of Bastion anymore. I don't remember the new name of it now, but Spear of Bastion to pin targets, or you're thinking about what classes you need to bring with you in order to keep targets together. And it feeds all of the abilities really nicely together. together, and likely is going to mean that warrior has a very high amount of sustained damage, which I think is really good for the game and possibly healthy for the game. It's just that a lot of these modifiers are not super interesting. But what is super interesting is when we get to the right side of the tree. Bone Shaker. Shockwave stun duration is increased by 2 seconds. I should also note that they are going to be moving Shockwave to be more accessible on your talent tree, because this talent tree plays into the strengths of Shockwave and it needed to be more accessible. So you're going to be able to get, what is that, like an AoE kidney shot. That is this. So you're gonna be able to get this shockwave on everything. You could pin him with a spear, start demolishing them like crazy, just smashing them to pieces. And what's nice about this is the option to get Earthquaker, which will then make shockwave also. Oh, it says also knock enemies into the air, and its cooldown is reduced by 5 seconds. What is that going to look like also? I thought it was replacing the stun with a knock-up, and that way if you're playing with classes that have a lot of stuns, you could pick up an extra crowd control to just knock enemies up. But now it says it also knocks, so like why would that matter if you're knocking, unless maybe you've got like an evoker, because I think evokers do extra damage on knocked up targets. This has got to be, they need some clarity on this tooltip. I'm assuming it's going to replace the stun with a knock-up, and it's going to be available more frequently, giving you a little bit more crowd control outside of stun DRs. This is especially noticeable when you're playing in Soul Shuffle with like rogues and stuff, or with other classes that have stuns. You're gonna have another AoE type of crowd control that could be really valuable. AoE interrupts are, you know, really important in things like Mythic Plus. So now you're likely going to be more desirable because you can bring that extra utility. The next one stems directly from Missa Pandaria as well, or at least the second portion of this choice node. No Stranger to Pain. Total damage prevented by Ignore Pain increased by 15%. Ignore Pain just getting more beefed up. But the second part is Rally. Taking damage has a low chance to give you Second Wind for 2 seconds. Now, previously, you couldn't get Second Wind unless you dropped combat. But Second Wind in its old iterations from Missa Pandaria was really powerful. Now, this one's only going to last 2 seconds. It really depends on, you know, it says low chance, but the amount of uptime. So this is something that we're going to have to test through. But if this gets a lot of uptime, you could be just completely unkillable with an AoE kidney shot, smashing demolish onto everybody while all of your abilities do insanely crazy damage. As far as we're talking throughput on this talent tree so far, it is looking disgustingly good. Which then leads us into the last talent, which is Mountain of Muscles and Scars. You are just going to deal 5% more damage and take 2.5% less damage and be 5% bigger. Because why not? I mean, I don't know. I guess you just want to be bigger, so you're going to be bigger. You got to fit in with the Colossus theme, I guess. Obviously, it's not going to play too much. I guess you're going to be easier to target, possibly, but just flat out 5% more damage, taking 2.5% less damage, AoE kidney shotting everybody with Shockwave, having Mortal Strike buffing up your Demolish, having your Demolish buffing up your Overpower, having your Overpower buff up your Mortal Strike, comboing together for cooldown reduction to try and stack enemies up and absolutely destroy them. Like, this is above and beyond going to be the best choice for PvP. I have no doubt. I don't know how Thunderclap Warrior is going to stand a chance of shaking against this tree in terms of how powerful it is. So this is looking like a big win if you're a PvP player for a warrior. Something definitely to be excited about. And yep, that's all we got really to talk about for the Colossus Warrior. If you enjoyed this video and want to stay up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, smash that subscribe button. Your support is always appreciated. And let me know what you think. Do you think that this talent tree is looking strong, good? Is it what you want? Are you excited for it, or is it not hitting the mark? But other than that, thank you very much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.